made mention of the tire flying into the parking lot.
Yes.
That's a big deal. I mean, because they've put nets up and you name it to try to protect the fans from, things flying. We've seen tragedies where tires have been in the in the stands, and in this case, they went right over the top of the netting. That thing had a spike hanging out in the middle, some tie rod or whatever it would be, and it hit a car in the parking lot. So I mean, the velocity of the thing was amazing. And welcome to this edition of the 941 Sports Zone. I am John Massoni, all alone, here at Douglas Jeep, and normally I have John Peacock to my left and a guest in the middle, but this week it's me and my guest calling in from Massachusetts. Specifically, what town are you in again, Rich, in Massachusetts?
I'm 10 miles north of Boston in Saugus, and it's as we record this, it's a very sad day up here.
Yes, we will get into that for sure. And that voice is Rich Spedalari, host of Spits on Sports, Saturday mornings on WENG Radio, 9 to 10, or is it 9 to 11, Rich?
It's 9 to 10 at the moment, John. Hope to have some news as we get closer to football season. Might be expanding that.
Okay, great. And Rich has been basically a part of our media family since we got into media back in 2007. Lengthy time with Rich. Rich started out. We go to Pops here in Venice.
The old Pops.
Yeah.
The old Pops.
No doubt.
Where there wasn't the Pops that's there now, folks. It's completely different. It's wonderful how it's expanded. But yeah, we were out in the patio.
07, it was rustic, let's just say.
Yes.
It was much more of a fish campy kind of setup. I was known at Pops as shrimp quesadilla. That's what they used to call me, because that's all I order was a shrimp quesadilla. And
I did not know that.
Yes, the waitresses where I was like, oh, shrimp quesadilla. I'm like, yeah, nice to see you again. They knew exactly what I was going to get. But there, and then on from there, where you and Coach Peacock or John, our host John Peacock, would go and do a coach's show on the radio from emanating from a few other places, and then podcasting, and we actually did a radio show on Tuesday nights out of my restaurant where I had my run-in as a restaurant owner, and that was really a cool experience as well. So Rich has been part of us, and I get the opportunity to sometimes be a guest on Rich's show, and he's returned the favor, and I really do appreciate that for us here at 941 Sports Zone, and hopefully this will be a regular occurrence with us here, Rich, because we know your wealth of knowledge. It's interesting, you are in Massachusetts, but you are still have a pulse as to what goes on not only in our 941 area code, but also a lot to do with the South Sarasota County, Charlotte County area as well, with the tie into WENG Radio.
Yes, and I appreciate it. It's kind of a little bit of a role reversal for us. You're usually appearing with me. Now I'm appearing with you, so let's roll.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And normally at this time in the show, we kind of recap what we did last week on the show. First and foremost, we'll go over the predictions from last week. John Peacock decided he wanted to stick with the Lakers as far as making the massive comeback. He went to come back, but it was the opposite. It was actually the Celtics that made the comeback, and the Lakers were not the ones to make the comeback, and they lost to the Nuggets in 4. And then our other guest from last week, actually the last 2 weeks, John Reynolds from SNN News up in Sarasota, predicted that the Nuggets would win 4-1 in the playoffs. So he still got his going on, and I made sort of one of those sort of emotional, picks where you think, oh, this is going to be even a better story with Michael Block from PGA making the cut, and not only making the cut, but making it into next year's PGA. I thought somehow or another he could get over the hangover of winning and hole-in-oneing it and everything else and make the cut down in Texas at the Charles Schwab. But he did not, and he didn't make the cut probably the first 4 holes in. He shot a pretty lucky 81 to get to the next day, and then enjoy the ride the second round. So my prediction didn't come true. And Rich, you get the good opportunity to make some predictions yourself. Are you prognosticating? Have you been boning up on it a little bit, or are you sort of stay away from making predictions these days?
Well, back on March 10th. Gambling became legal here in the state of Massachusetts, so I've been making a lot of predictions. Boy, I tell you, when it becomes legal in Florida, it's going to be something, because I open up my phone almost every night and make a prediction.
And I'll tell you this: I don't see how it cannot make it. It's with especially with the NFL wanting to kind of put everything in stadiums and whatnot. I think this is going to have to happen, but it's a matter of, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things the red tape and who needs to get involved and not involved and how it's going to be handled. So it's going to come eventually, and I think it'll be something that'll lead to a lot of revenue and interest in all sports as time goes forward.
I totally agree with that. It adds a little bit of intrigue, and but certainly I get in the prediction business, do a lot of predictions on my show as well. So
yeah,
even before March the 10th. So I'm looking forward to this. I've been thinking about it a lot today.
Good. Real quick, also the Rays are still playing well. They just basically they beat the Dodgers over the weekend in a series at home, and then lost yesterday, which is Memorial Day. We're taping here on Tuesday at Douglas Jeep. But they're still playing well, and they're still doing. We'll get into the Rays a little more in our state section, and then NBA and NHL playoff update. Obviously, everything is set now for the finals. You got the Nuggets and the Heat in the NBA finals, and you've got in the NHL finals the Golden Knights versus the Florida Panthers. The Florida will represented in both categories.
Yeah, the city of Miami. Not exactly the best sports town in America. Got a couple of 8 seeds in the finals. I'm sure that place is going to be jumped. South Beach is going to be the place to be over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think both those two teams, not great regular seasons, but had really good seasons the season before. Some injuries, and some things times they'll go right. They both limped into the playoffs and have come out like dynamos in the playoffs. So we'll see if they can continue that. One quick update also, Rich. There was a conversation last week about John Reynolds had talked about the tragic deaths at some of the horse racing venues when the Triple Crown, with 7 horses being put down or dying at Churchill Downs, and then one at Pimlico this past week. And we kind of got into a conversation regarding how the horses are euthanized and why and where. And I fortunately have a family relative, my daughter. Is going to veterinary school at the University of Florida, and I might call her up because we're talking about how and why and can't they do something about it. And unfortunately, what she had to tell me is that yes, they do have to euthanize the horses because the injury is not something that's sustainable for the horse. In most cases, they can usually do a quick analysis of it, and I guess the pain that is happening for those animals when it happens. Euthanizing them as quick as possible is the most humane way about it. And I know she's not one for that kind of things, but when she said it to me, it did ring true.
Yeah, I'm a big horse racing guy, so I've been all over this story. The death toll at Churchill Downs since they opened in late April is now up to 12. As a matter of fact, today, as we're recording on Tuesday, they're having a summit at Churchill Downs to discuss what's going on with this. That's how serious they're taking it. It is something that has haunted this industry for a long time. A couple of years ago, Santa Anita had over 40 deaths out in California. That's for those who don't know, it's in Arcadia, California, in the LA area. Had over 40 deaths on track, both in training and during races. And it's something that has been brought to the fore. And the Triple Crown, you still have the Belmont Stakes coming up in a couple of weeks. It's going to bring it back to the fore. It's something that needs to be addressed and is being addressed, but your daughter's absolutely right, because when the horse can only stand on 3 feet, something called laminitis occurs.
Yes, that's it.
And basically they can't stand at all. And once you can't stand, it is the most. I know the folks at PETA and everybody else don't want to hear this, but it is the most humane thing to do is to euthanize them when they have catastrophic breakdowns, like they did at Pimlico in the pre-Preakness card as well. Yeah,
and like I said, you see these beautiful the athletes, which is what they are, and young in their lives. And Coach Peacock was saying, well, couldn't they do something? These horses are valuable, that put them out to stud or whatever, but it's just something that they just cannot. In most cases, they cannot repair where the horse can survive.
Right.
So it's one of those situations.
Can't just put a splint on it. I mean, you were talking about 1,000-pound animals. That's
right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. No doubt about that. So that was a little quick update on that. I felt I needed to sort of the conversation was got a little, it was back and forth. It was a good conversation, but we really didn't have any technical expertise in the situation. So I figured I put a little bow on that one. With that, Rich, we'll go ahead and go back and talk a little more local sports. Obviously, you being a local guy over the years, and like I mentioned before, you sort of have your pulse on the South Sarasota, Charlotte County area, and we just had a team from Lemon Bay, the girls softball team, make it to the semifinals, lost in the semifinals, but a great run. And I know that team has been from my recollection, has always been a very good program, probably Lemon Bay's top program in a lot of cases.
Yes, Kim Pinkham, the head coach there, she's been there for quite some time. This was her first chance. They've been to many regional finals and came oh so close. They finally got over the hump, got to the state semifinals, as you mentioned last week. Unfortunately, a loss in that semifinal game, but what a tremendous run. John, when you think about it, the hurricane went through there in September.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of these teams, Venice volleyball, Venice football, Lemon Bay's had tennis and golf and now softball. When you consider all the damage and all the lives that were turned upside down, it's been an incredible year in our South County and Charlotte County areas in local sports. Just the fact that, one, they were able to play them, but it seems like the kids have raised their level.
It's true, and it's almost, it tells you about the dedication and the training that these kids go through, that they're able to sort of overcome a tragedy in their lives, homes being destroyed and families being destroyed and whatever is going on, and they're still able to kind of focus on school and academics and athletics, and it's amazing how they can do it. We saw the turnaround in a matter of a couple of weeks with the football team and then the volleyball team as well at Venice, and we're like, gosh, It's not that they weren't dealing with it. They were displaced. They weren't at home and stuff like that. And so they were still able to focus and do whatever. And maybe sometimes and for a lot of us, this is true. Sports are a beautiful distraction. And it takes you away sometimes from the what's really going on, and to kind of get away from that is maybe it was a blessing for them to be athletes and be able to kind of immerse themselves in something other than waiting for the roof to get fixed or whatever else is going on in their lives. And so it's been unbelievable. And that's take away from that. I was going to ask you about big stories from the past high school year in South Sarasota and Charlotte, but that right there might be the biggest story, is how people overcame these young athletes overcame what they had to go through with Hurricane Ian.
There's no question about it, and I know there was some pretty serious damage in the Venice area. Inglewood was ground zero for like 10 hours.
Yeah.
They were out of school a lot longer, and yet all the programs managed to pick up. And to me, that's the biggest story of the year. I mean, that there's no question about it. And congratulations to all these kids. The last few years between the pandemic and now this. I have a daughter. I know you have a couple of daughters. I have a daughter that just got her master's at age 24. And I don't know if I could have done that, because most of it was done remotely. Yeah. You have to be a special person to be able to sit down at home with all the distractions, and there are many, and focus and concentrate on what you're doing. And that goes in sports as well. You're going to practice. I came down in December, and Lemon Bay's campus was still in complete tatters. The tennis courts were all mangled, and there was visible signs of the hurricane everywhere. And yet, as the seasons came up, they got everything taken care of. And these kids, what a job I know the coaches did a tremendous job. Listen, they are all fantastic and incredibly underpaid. We could do a whole podcast on that. Yes. But the fact of the matter is, the fact that these kids had the drive and the coaches helped drive the bus, I just think it's incredible what our area did this year, sports-wise, at the high school level.
Yeah, I work in mobile home parks as my regular occupation, and we were looking around from day one. I was like, wow, how's this going to get done? And then it took 90 days to what I call recovery part of it, which was like basically things picked up. And sort of where you can kind of looked a little the same, but to this day, there's a good portion of places that I still have to sort of navigate around, and the places are going to be torn down, and they haven't been picked up in some way. So there's still a constant reminder as to how much more has to be done in regards to just day-to-day living in this area. But again, like you said, to have the custodial staffs and all those people to get everything ready to go and be able to hold safe. events at these schools is just been a tremendous situation. And I will tell you this, from my football perspective, watching the schools, be able to share fields and do certain things and work schedules out, and there were some games lost. We know that, but so to see it all happen and kind of everybody work together was a pretty cool feeling, because a lot of times you don't have that, and when you're in the midst of a rivalry or in the midst of a season when you want to beat that guy and he wants to beat you and all that stuff. So it worked out very nicely, and so the recovery part, why that probably is complete. The whole rebuild is still maybe years away in some cases.
I'll give you a perfect example of what you talk about the teams getting together. Lemon Bay played a game at Bayshore right afterwards, or Lemon Bay's field was not able to be used until the very end of the season, so they had to take all their games on the road. Well, Bayshore took all of the receipts from that game and gave them to Lemon Bay. Yeah. All the receipts, everything from the concession stands, tickets, and everything, and just kind of donated and said, hey, we're with you. Bradenton got a little bit, but not nearly as bad as Lemon Bay, and that's the thing. That's the thing that heartened me from far away, because I was up here, and I was actually doing stuff on WENG as the eyes of the people there, because they didn't have power and they didn't have the first couple of weeks. My show was basically kind of if you need this is where you need to go. If you need that, this is where you need to go. So it to watch from afar was just unbelievable. And again, the stories like that make it really cool. We live in one of the coolest places. I still consider myself living there.
Absolutely. You are absolutely definitely.
I'm up here. I got things I got to take care of up here as well. But we live in one of the coolest, and obviously the people came through in our area, head and shoulders. It was fantastic. It was so wonderful to see.
I know it was. It really was. So with that, you mentioned a little bit about your show. Tell everybody about your show, Spits on Sports. You're very local in regards to what you talk about, but obviously you've been doing it a long time, and you and Carrie do a great job together. It's very, very entertaining. Talk a little about your show and what you're looking forward to maybe coming up here shortly.
Yeah, we're going to focus this weekend coming up, I believe, on the Rays. We'll have, we are a Rays affiliate, so we take advantage of that. Our good buddy Neil Solons, who unfortunately was thrust into a new position this year with the sudden passing of Dave Wills, who was so good to me. I mean, he never said, he said no one time, basically because he was on a bus in New York City and we just couldn't get together.
Right.
But he always made time for me. He was when you hear somebody say he's bigger than life, Dave Wills was bigger than life. He really was. What a just a tremendous loss. Neil has been coming on the show for years as the pre and post game host, and now he's taken Dave's spot alongside Andy Freed doing Rays Radio, and we'll have him on this weekend to discuss, what's going on with the Rays. Yeah. You look at the record and you go, well, what do you need? Why are you even going to have a discussion? But there's some holes there that got to get filled and filled pretty soon. The bullpen is a major issue right now.
Absolutely.
And it's for a team that's 22 games over 500. You're going, major issue? What are you talking about? Well, if you've watched the last month or so, you understand where I'm talking about. And I mean, guys are getting hurt warming up on the bullpen like the other night. The Dodgers game, Pete Fairbanks for the second time lands on the IL. So, but we'll talk a little Rays, and we're probably going to there's always stuff going on in football, so we'll probably talk a little bit about that. And just the show comes together as we get in during the week.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely be Ray-centric this week for sure.
No doubt. Nick, so you're talking about football. Football is now officially 12 months a year. There might be 2 weeks where you may have a break, but it's just not. I mean, I turned on the radio this morning, and I get my day started, and I'm like, what? They're talking about DeAndre Hopkins and where he's going to go. So it's always something out there. Somebody's making a splash somewhere and making a headline for sure, wherever that may be. One other thing, real quick, we'll kind of dive into this a little bit later as well in our state section. But we talk about transfer portals and NIL and other things over the past couple of months where it's become such a big deal in college football. And so we had an issue or a situation where a player has transferred from school to school here locally. And you look at the situation, and I think this is going to be what is going to be the norm for from now on forever. Because once the FHSA gave that that green light to go ahead and said let people go places here and there, it is going to be something that's going to be a constant situation and something to be you have to deal with from one way or the other. Whether you're either coming or going, depending on where you're looking.
John, I've thought about this NIL, particularly on the college level. There are some guys that are actually going to make more money in college than in the pros. I really believe that. There's going to be some guys who get NIL deals and don't quite pan out to the next level, and I think they're going to make more. And I'm talking about quarterbacks of big schools who might have to sit on the bench. Or of course, sitting on the bench means you just re-enter the transfer portal. You're not gonna sit on the bench, but it's a whole new world out there. The next 2 or 3 years are going to be interesting. We've got the SEC is going to be expanding. Oklahoma and Texas are coming. They're going from CBS to ESPN. There's basically going to be 2 networks driving the bus. I know NBC's trying to get a nibble here and there, but it's ESPN and it's Fox and it's money, and this is just and it has trickled down to the high school level, the FHSAA. I totally agree with you. Lee County has been basically an open air Nintendo game. People just there's kids that have played in 4 different schools in 4 years down there. I'm not kidding you. 100%.
I've heard. I mean, you hear all the stories, different stuff here and there about young kids and this, all the different things that they're trying to get in to come to these different schools. But it's just like anything else. Hey, for a while there was they had a big rule change about targeting. And what to do, not to do, and then that within weeks of the NCAA putting a rule out about targeting, high school had it. So rule changes, everything else. It's just it's a quickest ripple effect you ever wanted to see. Something happens at the college level within a matter of moments. In the grand scheme of things, the high schools are adapting those things, and things are sort of coming that way. And they're just married to each other. That's just the way it is. So we'll talk a little more about that as well in our state section. But Rich, what we'll do right here is take our first chance to take a break. Again, we're here at Douglas Jeep, and we appreciate them having us here every week. And Monty Jacobs and his staff are very accommodating. We borrow chairs and do all kinds of good stuff, but they let us keep our set here. It's pretty cool, and we do appreciate them every week being great hosts as they are. With that, we'll take our first break, come back here, and talk a little bit about what's going on in the state of Florida with our guest, Rich Spedalari. Be back here at Douglas Jeep shortly. Our second portion of today's 941 Sports Zone, here with Rich Spedalari, my prestigious guest, calling in on the Zoom call and doing a good job of it so far. I mean, this is pretty smooth. These Zoom calls, we're getting better and better with them, and you got it going on up there. So glad you've got all the equipment, the headsets, the whole deal. You're ready to rock.
If there's one thing the pandemic did positively, at least in the broadcasting world, Zoom calls are a regular thing now.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants their mug on TV. I don't particularly, but hey, listen, I have a face for radio. I've said that for over 20 years. So, but anyway.
But podcasting, like you said, as we see what we're doing, and it's like there's a lot of people like the visual. You know what I mean? The Instagram people,
Absolutely.
and TikTok people of the world, they love that stuff. So something visual is always good. With that, Rich, we'll hop into our state section of our show here, and college sports obviously always being a big part of what happens, especially in the state of Florida with the Big Three. But now we might even call them the Big Five, with UCF and USF stepping into the higher levels of being the UCF being in the Big 12 from this point forward. But with that, we're wrapping up some things in college sports. Notre Dame won a lacrosse championship. over the weekend, which was interesting. They beat Duke, a perennial power in lacrosse.
Yeah.
Northwestern girls won that lacrosse championship over the weekend, and then baseball and softball. I know how popular baseball is, but softball is all over the place. You can't turn anything on. It's like Saturday afternoon watching college football, where 9 stations have softball games going on, and we've in locally or in state, I should say, FSU softball has become a powerhouse over the last, I'd say maybe 6 to 8 years or so, and they're going to be competitive heading out to Oklahoma City, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right.
Yeah, for the championship. Any talk about softball? You probably watch a little bit of it and see what you think of it as far as in college.
I have, and the one thing is, it reminds me a lot of '80s football, John.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to beat Oklahoma? Because Oklahoma is the juggernaut.
Yeah.
They rarely lose. I think they've only lost once this year. Last year, did they not go undefeated? If they did, they only lost once last year. So they're even though this is a loaded field, although there were a lot of teams that were knocked off early. UCLA, who was the 2nd seed, was knocked off early, but a lot of the seeded teams came through, and yet it all goes through Oklahoma, and they get to play a semi-home game as well, or home tournament in Oklahoma City. But they're really good. They're really, really good.
No doubt about that. FSU has a starting pitcher that's supposed to be lights out. I haven't seen her throw, but she's supposed to be a game changer. So we'll see what happens. And it's again entertaining. I actually was commenting to somebody over the weekend. I'm like, both college baseball and college softball is they have a lot of spirit, let's just say. But some of the stuff the softball players do wouldn't fly on a baseball diamond. When you have 24 girls greeting the girl at home plate, that was just the tying home run, not a winning home run. Where you've got a lot of the constant, the never-ending sort of chatter that goes on, and there's a lot of stare downs, and you name it. I'm a little uncomfortable sometimes watching. I'm like, are these girls going to start throwing hands here in a second, or buzzing the tower as they do in the baseball? I don't know if you see it the same way, but how do you see it?
No, I see that, and I also see baseball changing just a little bit, John, and some of that probably is because of the World Baseball Classic, because a lot of that went on in the World Baseball Classic. Yeah. I don't know what to make of the World Baseball Classic. Congratulations, Japan. You're the world champion, if you will. I don't like it in March, but I understand you can't do it in November because it's after a long season. I personally think they should do something like the NHL does, and maybe in July instead of having the the All-Star game. Maybe you take a couple of weeks off and play the World Baseball Classic. Then you won't get pitchers getting injured for the entire season because they're not stretched out, or they're not something like that. But a lot of that went on in the World Baseball Classic, and there's not nearly as much. There's still guys celebrating. Randy Rosarena's still doing his thing. Rays do a lot of things that a couple of years ago, speaking of buzzing the tower, they would have buzzed the tower. Yeah. I think it's becoming a little more accepted these days. You still can't go crazy over the top, but I think it's being more accepted.
Yeah, the bat flip is the one kind of the gray area. It's always like you watch the bat flip and you see one guy do a bat flip, you're like, that's no big deal, and somebody gets offended, and then next time guy does a bat flip and it's he flips it 60 feet in the air and does a dance underneath it, and nobody does anything about it. So there's a lot of things like that. But no, I was going to say we'll get to the Rays here in a little bit too. Again, more about what was going on with the Dodgers and them. But yeah, they have the World Baseball Classic. I've mentioned it before when Josh Grant, our mutual friend, was on. I said the Rays, I think, used the World Baseball Classic. The players did as a launching pad into the season.
Yeah, they had 12 guys.
Yeah.
Sprinkled amongst the teams, and a lot of those guys are off to fantastic starts. I totally agree with that. It was a little nerve-wracking during the Classic because you saw some catastrophic injuries and some guys.
Yeah.
Jose Altuve getting hit on the hand, and he just literally came back within the last couple of weeks. Mets lost their closer, Diaz, for the entire season, celebrating a win.
Mr. Tommy Trumpet.
Yes,
which was one of the coolest things I saw last year in baseball was when he he was up there and he was they had the guy the Tommy Trumpet guy came out and did the actual live walk-in music, so that was pretty cool from that perspective too. So there's definitely some things happening. Going back to college baseball, Florida Gators locally are they finished, I guess you would say, semifinals in the SEC championship, which is sort of like the harder tournament maybe than the NCAA championship. Yes. You're going to have so many teams from the SEC in there. I would say probably maybe 5 or 6 teams minimally hosting regionals this coming up week. And so Gator baseball on the climb, and a local product here, Michael Robertson from Venice High School, also on that team, performing well. It's in center field for the Gators.
Yeah, they've had a pipeline up to Florida. Coach Faulkner has had a bunch of guys go to Florida. I know he's an LSU guy, and he tries to steer them that way, but he has a good relationship with the Gator program, and the Gators are always up there. It's good to see them, playing really well. They're hosting a regional, are they not, John?
It should be, yeah. I didn't look to see, but I would be very surprised based on their ranking. They should be hosting a regional. I would more than guess that. I would be very confident to say that is the case. But again, they're going to see a lot. I would tell you, I would be surprised to see no less than 3 teams from the SEC in the World Series this year. Less they put them, they get against each other somehow and knock each other out. But 3, I could see, and from all those 6 teams that are hosting, I could see any 3 of those 6 making any one of them, because they're all very, very good baseball teams.
I would actually take the over on that. Wasn't it last year where all but like 1 or 2 teams from the conference made the field of 64?
Yeah.
It's incredible. But, again, advantage, because not only is it the SEC, but you have a weather advantage. You could start playing in February. All those teams from up north have to play February and March basically on the road. So, the road is a little different. We'll talk about that a little bit as we get into the other sections. It's not nearly the same as going on the road, in the 80s and 90s. But still, when you have to, you're from the University of Maine and you're going to spend a month and a half in Florida, and Louisiana, and all that, it takes a lot out of you. You're still going to school, believe it or not.
We talk a lot about all the great athletes coming out of the state of Florida. And there are great athletes, but the advantage here is that you can play your sport 12 months a year.
Absolutely.
And you never stop, and so you don't get you don't have to retool your swing, or you don't have to get your arm back into some kind of shape. You don't have to be better conditioned or get used to it's a different deal down here. They can play outside, and they're doing it all year round. So it does lend itself to a huge advantage. Years and years of progress are made further down the road than people that are kind of struggling to do it up north.
Yeah, no question about it, John. It is an advantage. It's funny because I'm up here in Massachusetts, and I talk. Yeah, it's May. It's spring football. They're like, what? Spring football?
That?
What's that? I said, well, they got to practice for a whole month and then actually play a game, weather permitting, of course. But you get to play a game, and they're like, it just doesn't compute up here. It's a completely different world, really. When
we sprang, my son-in-law, I mentioned last week, is a coach out in Colorado, and he's like, we wrapped up spring football. I said, what do you guys do? He's like, oh, we do our workouts and this and that. I said, oh, so you don't really get the team together? He's like, no. I said, well, you guys practice? I said, we play a game. We practice like a regular training, 15 practices or whatever else it is, and we play a game. And so he's like, really? I said, yeah. And we don't play just any game. We play a game against somebody who can play. We test ourselves, And so it's I would say, advantage wise, these kids that are going to college to play football and everything, they have so much more time to learn their trade. So much more time. They're not rushing into game planning. They're moving positions and learning different things and learning technique in the spring where they never had that opportunity before. So it's really an interesting deal, and it's not the only state that does it, obviously, but the ones that do tend to be the ones where the recruiting is the hotbed around the country.
No question about it. And I give Coach Peacock all the credit in the world, because that's to him. That's anytime they put the scoreboard on.
Yeah,
he says it counts.
It
period.
Counts.
End of story.
He doesn't forget that stuff. No, he does not forget that stuff. So, and the kids, they've taken that approach as well, which is good. One more quick other thing about from the weekend, another Gator player, Fred Biondi, golfer, won the national championship, individual national championship yesterday out at Greyhawk, and I actually have played Greyhawk a few times.
Have you?
Yes, it's a pretty cool spot. That's a Phil Mickelson stomping ground place, and a very interesting golf tournament or golf course, to say the least. I've struggled out there a little bit, but it's fun. Nice place to get breakfast. It's a really nice venue. So Greyhawk is familiar to me, and did a great job. Like I said, he made a clutch par in 18 to hold on for the win, and congratulations to him and bringing home the national championship.
Didn't he come from like 5 back on the final
He
day?
He did.
He came from far back. By the way, let me give you an update because I looked this up. There are 8 of the 16 regionals being hosted by SEC teams. The Gators are the number 2 overall seed. Wake Forest is number 1.
Yeah, so that's just said. And they didn't win the SEC, so you know where that's the ranking. They were again. They lost in the semifinal to a very good Vanderbilt team. It's just been a perennial power. I mean, Vanderbilt has really stepped their game up in the last 6 or 8 years.
Isn't that amazing that Vanderbilt can be that good in baseball when you consider how much they struggle in football and even in basketball of late. But in baseball, every year they're right there and they get the kids. And it's hard to get into that. I mean, it's very hard to get into Florida, but it is really hard to get into Vandy.
Well, it tells you what you can do from when the coaching staff knows how to play the game, so to speak. Getting them in there, making everything right. And so that's a really cool deal when they get to do that. With that, Rich, I'm going to just kind of tack into what we talked about a little bit earlier. But again, this time of the year, we're starting to hear again about transfer portal situations and who needs a quarterback and who needs a running back and needs a lineman or whatever. And this is really starting to happen more and more around the state where you're seeing the transfer portal coming. There's so many different windows that are of opportunity. I can't even keep up with how many windows they open up for these kids to go different places. Your opinion, transfer portal, up good or bad? NIL here to stay? Give me your opinion on that in regards to how it affects the state teams in football.
All right, so I like the transfer portal, but I think they've got to close the amount of windows.
Yeah.
I mean, there are literally kids that didn't get what they thought were the amount of time in their spring game, and they've entered the transfer portal because they didn't, there was one guy that caught 8 balls for like 168 yards, and he still entered the transfer portal. Yeah. I don't quite understand it. I think there should be only maybe 2 or 3 windows instead of what seems like open season. NIL is here to stay. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Right. Once you let it out, that's it. Now the question is, how does it get regulated? And it's interesting. The new president of the NCAA is the former governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, and he's got quite a job on his hands. But of course, all he has to do is be a breathing soul. I'm sorry, I'm not a Mark Emmert fan.
No, he didn't. He didn't do much for anybody.
I think the NCAA, I think the NCAA took like 16 steps back, and Baker's job is tough, but one of the things he's got to do, he's got to rein in this NIL. I don't have a problem with it. There's got to be some regulations. Right now, it's just open season.
You go ahead. Finish your point.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
I'll say about Mr. Baker. I saw him on CNN. I saw him on all the different news, as soon as he got the job, and he was a immediate upgrade in regards to how he spoke about things, his approach to how he was proactive. He wasn't just sort of waiting around and shrugging his shoulders when things were going a little. He's ready to go. So I think he's the right guy for the job, because there does have to be some sort of regulation to this in some ways, because what's going to happen is, especially we'll use the quarterback position in particular, with the portal the way it is and the NIL way it is, a guy's going to go and he's going to go, I'm going to go to Oklahoma, which is this is actually what happened, obviously. And in the case of Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley goes to USC, and there goes Caleb Williams with him. Yep. Now, Caleb Williams, not only when he went into the portal, he kind of knew he was going to USC, but he did a little dance with Georgia and a couple other teams to see if there was some sort of astronomical money out there, because he proved himself to be the guy that they thought he was going to be. And so you talked earlier about how schools and kids are going to be like, no, I can think I'll stay in the college for a little while longer, because I got opportunities here to make some real money, or more money than I'll make in the first 4 years of my career in the NFL. And that's an interesting proposition, because it could be either a good thing or a bad thing for the NCAA. It could make everything a bidding war, trying to get these guys to stay. And it could end up being guys that are cashing in on early money and maybe missing out on the possibility of a career in the NFL, but injuries or better yet, look at another Oklahoma quarterback. His name is at South Carolina. The kid that we're talking about.
Oh yeah. Spencer
Rattler, right. He went, he left Oklahoma a litit bit, disgusted the fact he got benched, goes to South Carolina. Would I say he had a successful year? Not necessarily, compared to what he was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. and he goes to South Carolina to a lesser team, not a good team, very good team, but a lesser team, and doesn't shine like he shined at Oklahoma. And so now you're exposed as maybe a guy who's a system guy, and so that could be the pitfall to some of these things. So in protection of the player, in protection of the university, in protection of whatever, NIL is going to have something that kind of keeps it from becoming just, a guys just going all over the place to get the next extra dime out of somebody.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'd be interested to see how he does this year. South Carolina did close very strong. They beat, at the end of the year, didn't they beat Tennessee and they beat one other team.
Clemson.
Clemson, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee and Clemson, their last couple of regular season games, and gave Notre Dame all they wanted in the bowl game up in Jacksonville. Can he parlay that into, like you said, is he just a system guy, or is he going to take that next step this year?
Yeah. And the one positive thing from the quarterback position, even maybe every position, if guys do choose to stay, that extra year or two of seasoning, especially from a quarterback position. Anthony Richardson, obviously something that's close to what I follow as far as this Gator guy, not a lot of starts. And that's one thing I look at other than, you look here about the size of their hands, all these different things.
Vertical jump.
All that stuff, right? Guy pops off the page, whatever he does. But a number of starts you have, I think, has a lot to say about your success in the NFL, because you have to be game ready in a lot of cases, unless you're going to sit on the bench for 3 years. But that's not what they want you to do. If you're getting drafted that high, be ready to play, because you're going to have to. And if you haven't had, you haven't faced enough of different defenses and whatnot, they're going to throw things at you. You're going to look at Sam Darnold, look at Zach Wilson, two Jets quarterbacks. My love of the Jets, and so they both guys weren't necessarily as prepared as they could have been, and it showed. I mean, they both collapsed. I mean, Darnold was famously said on the sidelines, "I'm seeing ghosts," when he played the Patriots, which means he doesn't know where anything's going. And Zach Wilson basically said the same thing as well. So, they didn't get to see a lot of game action, and maybe not enough game action. So maybe the NIL is enough to entice them to stay for some decent money, and they stay around. And maybe they will get better quarterbacks coming out in the draft. We'll see.
You talked about it, 13 starts for Anthony Richardson. I just don't think that's enough. I think Indianapolis. Good luck, Colts.
Yeah, and I know I've heard whispers. You hear little pundits saying, "Well, they'll get some packages for him and get him on the field and everything else." Well, that's just a gimmick. That's not going to be the when things start happening. So we'll see. I mean, Cam Newton might be one of the few guys that had limited starts and was successful, but he also was a guy who was 4 years in college with his 2 at Florida that he didn't really do much, and then junior college route, and then to Auburn, and he kills it that 4th year. So he was around for a little longer. He wasn't just a 2 or 3 and done guy into the pros. Real quick, Rich, we're going to tack back a little bit to the Rays, because again, the Rays are just so worthy of talking. You guys obviously carry the Rays games, and we've talked to Josh Grant, who's obviously up there quite a bit as their PA announcer / board guy and music guy, video guy, the whole
he
deal.
Does a little bit of everything,
and he's definitely wired into them. But what they've done this year might be a culmination of a lot of, hundreds of moves and getting the right guys. Because over the years, they always managed to cobble together a pitching staff, but now they got a lineup, and a formidable lineup, which is something that you just can't win games without. Look at on Sunday against the Dodgers, they won an 11-10 game. They didn't do that before.
Right. That's the difference this year. I don't think there's any question. And again, you go back to the World Baseball Classic. You mentioned it earlier. A lot of these guys got a lot of ABs early in the year. The pitching is struggling. Tyler Glasnow came back on Saturday. That's certainly great news. They lost a couple of starters for the year. Jeffrey Springs among them. Guys that they were counting on to start 30, 35 games. The bullpen's been very thin. But the Rays are not going to rush. We're all over here going, man, they got to get some bullpen guys and do it. The Rays have a system, and quite frankly, I catch myself and I go, you know what? The system's worked. Let's let the system work. In the meantime, they've put themselves out there, nice cushion. Them and the Orioles, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? You're in Baltimore, and again, they talk about the Rays attendance problems. Have you seen some of the attendance figures at Camden Yards? Which
terrible.
Is a beautiful ballpark. You got a really good team. The Orioles would be the talk of baseball if the Rays weren't there. They're only 4 or 5 games back. But those two teams, those two young teams, taking over the division. The Yankees are scuffling. They're playing a little bit better now. Up here in Boston, they're just they're killing
Yeah.
Chaim Bloom, who used to be with the Rays. They don't like the Rays way up here. They're
No.
spend, and oh, by the way, spend some more. So
That's you got the money. Why
Right.
sit on it? Right, 100%
Right.
right. They're not looking for a team that's going to be okay and then a little better the next year and then go for it. They want to be in it every year, and you're doubling down on some free agent or some guy that's they want everything to go. That's what you're going to get from the Dodgers, from the Yankees, from the Mets, from the Red Sox.
Right.
Maybe not the Chicago teams, but they could if they wanted to. But they don't have the patience for it, and they see these teams just raking in money, and they want to see them spend it, and that's kind of been the MO for a long time.
And the Red Sox for years now have had the most expensive ticket in baseball. And fans are staying away in droves this year. I mean, it's amazing. I'm going to go to the Rays are coming to town this weekend. I'm going to head over there for one of the day-night doubleheader games on Saturday. I can get tickets easily, and on the secondary market, pretty inexpensive for that this coming weekend. The fans are not buying in, even though they're several games over 500. I think like 3 or 4.
Yeah, but, I don't think anybody's under 500 in the American League East. I think everybody's over 500. And
yeah,
so, and you look
even
at that.
Toronto, who just went through a 2-9 stretch in the division, including losing 3 out of 4 to the Rays last week. So they're in a little bit of trouble. But the Rays, listen, they'll do their thing. I fully expect by the end of June or early July that the tweaking will begin with their pace.
I don't see them having a year where they have a prolonged losing streak. I think they have. I think they got enough pieces in place, and it's enough of a sample size right now going into June that tells me that they're going to be there. That's a sustainable situation. I don't usually say that about the Rays. There's always you can find a crack here and there, but they've got to kind of put together. And one thing I was always upset about with the Rays in particular was the releasing of Joe Maddon back in the day. I thought that Joe Maddon could carry that team. He would be the face of the team in so many ways, as opposed to some big superstar player, Maddon being the guy. But I mean, they hit a home run with Kevin Cash. I mean, a home run. I mean, he is an unbelievable manager, and he does a great job with that team, and steady hand with what he does, and he knows what he's doing. So they got the right guy. That's for sure.
Yeah, and he's going to be here for a while. That's the one thing that's pretty amazing. As everybody else makes changes, you went from Maddon, and Maddon was here from like 06 to when Cash came in. So basically, in a 17 or 18-year stretch, they've had 2 managers.
Yeah.
And considering all the turnover every year, I mean, they turn over the bullpen every year. I mean, their bullpen guys are disposable parts. That's what the way the Rays look at them. Okay, we'll go get 3 more this year.
Right.
So that's why it's a little disconcerting this year that the bullpen is struggling a little bit, because they usually find a couple of diamonds in the rough. But listen, I'm sitting here complaining about a team that's 22 games over 500. Right. I need to keep my mouth shut.
And you can be sitting here in August, and they pick up 2 guys. You're like, what'd they get for who? And who's this guy? Next thing you know, he's killing things in the 5th and 6th and 7th innings and handing it over to the closer, and they're off and running again. So yeah, no, the Rays they're worthy of every conversation we've had about them, because they're just, again, what they're doing is shouldn't be shortchanged. And I think people are starting to get the interest. I was in the grocery store before I came here. People talking about the Rays, and I'm like, whoa, what are you talking? I hear Ray talk in the grocery line. That's not something we've seen over the years. It's been sort of like, especially this time of the year, because people are leaving here now, obviously, and going back up north. But there's Rays fans out there, and I think the interest is peaking at this point in time. So really good for them. All right, Rich, we'll take our second break here right now and get the little commercial time in for our good friends here at Douglas Jeep. We appreciate again for them having us here every week. With that, we'll take a short break, come back, talk about the things that are going on around the nation as far as the NBA and all the good things that happen over the weekend. So with that, we'll be back here shortly at the 941 Sports Zone. See you here in a few. Welcome back to the 941 Sports Zone, and we'll get started right away with our national segment here with Rich Spedalari from Spits on Sports at WENG Radio every Saturday morning, 9 to 10 a.m. Rich, nationally, obviously, some big things happening. NBA and the NHL finals are set. Heat, Nuggets, Golden Knights, Panthers. Can we have two champions out of the Miami area or out of Miami?
They're both 8 seeds. They both surprised. They both beaten the best to get here. That's the other thing. I mean, Florida went through Boston, Toronto, and Carolina. That's basically the 1, 2, and 4 seeds in the East.
And every one of those, they're going to get Boston's going to sweep them. Then they played Carolina. Everybody was a sweep, supposed to knock them out with ease. It just didn't happen that way. It just did not happen that way.
They're getting the goaltending. Sergei Bobrovsky has been sensational in net. The question is this long layoff going to affect them? Because they haven't played in a while, and they're not going to play again until Saturday night. So it's going to be literally about 11 days since they played.
And I will say this: the Golden Knights, the Vegas team, they fly around that ice. Man, they're quick passers. They play a tough defense too. Don't get me wrong. But when they get up to top speed, they are lightning in their way that they play on the offensive side of the ice.
It's interesting. One of those predictions I made was after round 1, Vegas was a 6-1 proposition to win the cup. They were basically, I think, the either first or second U.S. team. Toronto and Edmonton were both the favorites, so I immediately eliminated them. So you know where I'm rooting, but this is going to be a heavy series. Both these teams can hit. Yeah. Both these teams can skate. And it's going to come down to the goaltending, which I think gives Florida a chance, because if Bobrovsky continues to play the way he's playing, I mean, Florida's got more than a puncher's chance, because he has been the hot goalie. He
has experience too. He's been in a cup final before, and Florida's got a star. They got Matthew Tkachuk right now, who is, I mean, he's
what a trade.
What a player he's turned into being. He's a clutch guy, and that's in any sport, but especially the basketball being one of them in particular. You have a clutch guy you can depend on, especially with the specialty units. When he gets into the power play, guy is just he's just in front of the net. He's tipping pucks in. He's making shots, and so we'll see how it works out. You would like to think though with basketball, with the hockey, I should say, that the rest should help a hockey team, because it's such a physical. That you talk about how the NHL playoffs are the most grueling playoff series that you're going to get involved in. So maybe that time should help. But again, stiff legs. You're not going full out. You're not crisp. It could definitely hurt. So game 1 is going to be interesting to see how both teams come out. If Florida comes out flying and they don't miss a beat, I kind of lean towards Florida in this series, because I think they just sort of got it together. They were the President's Cup champion the year before last, and then they lost. So they're not just a fluke. They're a good hockey club.
Yeah, they kind of learned like the Lightning did back in 2019 when they were President's Cup champs and got dismissed. The Lightning dismissed them last year, and they made some major changes. Paul Maurice being the head coach, and listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, I was like, what are they going after that retread again for? Seriously, I did. But in the second half of the year, they finally got his system. And you talked about, teams underachieving. Florida was actually, I think, the 3rd best team in hockey after the All-Star break. So they turned it on. But yet, you think about this. There was a game, second to last night of the regular season. Pittsburgh is hosting Chicago. The Blackhawks were awful, and they ended up winning that game. And that's what got Florida into the playoffs.
Right.
So this run would have never happened if Pittsburgh did what they were supposed to do. The Penguins would have been in the playoffs. So they've had all the luck in the world, and right now they're riding the hot goalie. So I have a hard time. Yeah. Even though I've got my money in Vegas, I have a hard time not picking the Panthers in the series.
No doubt. And talking about being on a razor's edge, the Heat go out and get a 3-0 lead on the Celtics. And then should have won Game 6. They don't block out Derek White, and he gets a follow-up layup to win the game by 1 point in the Game 6 in Miami, but then come out last night. And, you're up in Massachusetts. I know that the Celtics fans are they want the coach's head. They want all kinds of – they're all not happy. Get rid of Tatum, get rid of Brown, whoever it's going to be. But, Miami should have put that series away Game 6 at the least, but then come out last night and just a virtuoso of performance by Jimmy Butler and everybody who are the role players on Miami. He motivates them, and they are a much better team than an 8 seed. That's our playing team, that's for sure.
No question about it. Listen, Caleb Martin, these guys were not drafted, okay? The guys that have Vincent, another one, not drafted. I mean, these guys that are coming off the bench, and let's understand something, and they might get him back for the final. Tyler Hero went out in the first series against Milwaukee. They said he was done for the year, thinking, there's no way we're going to be playing June. Now, he has basketball activities. He may show up in this series. He's a 20-point-a-game scorer. So, but a lot of people are saying, well, do you really want to play him? Do you want to mess up the feng shui they currently have going right now in Miami? But this Denver team, let's not mince words here, John. This Denver team was the most disrespected 1 seed I think I've ever seen in any sport. Nobody picked them but Scott Van Pelt from the 4-Letter Network. And they went out and they have just done nothing but take care of business. And, I mean, they dispatched the Lakers. Yeah. 4 straight. Goodbye. See ya.
No more disrespect than my partner, John Peacock, picking the Lakers over and over and over again to make this comeback against the Nuggets. Look, I honestly did not watch a lot of Nugget basketball. But I made a point to watch it because I want to see Jokovic, how good he was. I mean, I've watched him play, but just in a series where you're watching him night after night, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, right now he is the best player in the NBA, and that says a lot. His game. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, watch it from be a pure fan. Don't look at anything else. Just watch it. And I saw. This might be sacrilege to hope the house doesn't blow up behind you when I say it, but he's got Bird-esque stuff going on there.
No question. Unbelievable passer. Right. The offense goes through him, and he can shoot the 3, and he's so adept around the basket. I mean, he is just – he kind of reminds me a little bit of – a shorter Tim Duncan, actually.
Yeah, right.
Very fundamentally sound. You look at him and you go, he comes out on the court and you go, really, him? That's the guy? And the next thing you know, the stat sheet says 40, 19, and 12. And you're like, wow.
He eats up rebounds. He does things like, Rich, I saw, I think it was game 2 against the Lakers. I don't know how, the sequence of events, but he was over on the right-hand side of the lane. He got a pass to him, or he could have caught the pass, posted the guy up, and had a little bank shot, and he would have been fine. But he saw a cutter coming through, and the ball never touched his fingertips, and he, without even one foot full motion, passed it right to the guy for the easy layup. And I was like, you don't see that. I don't care who you are. You're Chris Paul, you name it. You don't see that kind of passing. With that sort of court awareness that a guy like he has. It's unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
Yes, but let's be real. The last couple of years, they've underachieved in the playoffs.
Yes.
They have a healthy Jamal Murray now, and he's definitely a Robin to his Batman. And that 2-man show right now, I can't see the series going. I mean, it might go to 6 only because of how it's formatted with the 2-3-2.
Yeah.
The first 2 in Denver, then 3 in Miami. I think Miami might be able to get two games in Miami, but if it goes 6, that's as far as it goes. So I think Denver, they're a 4-1 favorite, and they're whereas I took a flyer on the Heat when they were 6-1 underdog. No flyer in this series.
No.
I just think Denver's too good.
I don't know who can post up with him. Adebayo, is he going to be able to handle him? I just don't see it.
He got foul trouble last night.
Right.
He got in foul trouble last night when and Boston doesn't have any bigs.
No.
Unless you want to call Robert Williams. They're just gonna throw guys at him and hope somebody can slow him down.
All right, give you the opportunity right now. Tell me what it's like in Boston after the loss last night, because I know the Celtics fans are just up in arms. What's the I guess the theme? Is there one central theme, or are they all over the place with their upsetness towards the Celtics?
The central theme is there's apparently something that really smells in the locker room, and they got to figure out what it is to fix it. And after Game 4, actually, somebody who was unnamed came out and basically, they said, "Why did you win Game 4?" Well, because we stopped fake liking each other. I mean, that's a damning statement right
Yeah,
there.
right.
Okay, and apparently they made it work all the way to Game 7. I think they're going to have to split up Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, you're right.
I really do. I think one of them's going to have to go. I'm not sure Marcus Smart isn't the problem either. I mean, excuse me. Help me out here, John.
We got you. No, but Marcus Smart, he's a streaky guy. He's not a guy that you see consistency wise as a player, as a teammate as well. He's not consistent as well, because he seems to be a guy who seems to run hot and cold. Even his demeanor on the court, like last night, he wasn't even there. From my perspective, a guy of his talent level should have been the third person in that group, and I didn't see him as the third guy. I saw him as a bit role player last night, and that doesn't bode well for what he's getting paid to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people think that he's the problem. So, Joe Mazzulla, obviously, a lot of people think that he needs to go, but what a position he was thrown in. 34 years old. You know, the Udoka thing came up, and apparently Udoka is going to poach all the coaches now. So maybe he gets his own coaching staff this year.
He needs to.
And he really does. I think he deserves another chance. I just don't know if he's going to get it up here, because the vitriol is just. I listened to a 10-minute block at the big sports station up here. They had 4 dumps in a row, and I was listening on the app so I could actually hear the curse words. So it was wild. They're the underachieving up here. The fans don't go for it at all.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But again, you know, the expectations were high. And again, both those players, Tatum and Brown, the two superstars, don't come out as the guys that look like they have a lot of push or excitement for the game. They come out very businesslike, and it doesn't really lend itself for the other team to feed off of them in any way. They don't do anything that kind of gets anybody inspired. They both go out and get their numbers and on their way. That's about what they do.
That's a big thing, John. People are saying that a lot around here, that they don't have the fire. They don't have they bring up Bird, and they bring up McHale, and they bring up Parrish, and those guys never like to lose. These guys are like, all right, I mean, we made it to the conference finals. It was a good year. No. They don't hang conference championship banners up in the Garden.
No, they don't have enough room to do that.
They only hang the 17 where they actually took the thing home. So there's going to be some change.
Think about the big three. The last time the Celtics went around with Garnett,
right,
Allen, and Pierce, right?
Pierce.
Those guys to this day are on each other's case, or to this day they're that guy. So you have to have that little bit of it. You got to have something to bring, and I just don't see it. So jettison one, bring somebody in there who's got the little bit of the moxie they need to get, and maybe you start over with this subtracting one. If that doesn't happen, then you might see a total blow up of the Celtics and a reboot at some point.
Damian Lillard, that's the name you need to keep your ears open for. Damian Lillard, it appears to be a possible target.
And he wants to play in the East.
He does.
I heard the Knicks a little bit from him, and the Nets too. So he definitely wants to get in the fray in the East, and I think that would be an interesting. Any addition of Damian Lillard would be very interesting. We'll attack one more time here, Rich, and go to Memorial Day auto racing. Okay,
yes.
So Memorial Day, there's always the Indianapolis 500's been the Memorial Day regular for gosh how many years now? It's going back to the early 1900s with the Indianapolis 500, and then of course in the NASCAR side of things, the Coca-Cola 600 had a kind of an interesting thing. I fell for it as well. I don't follow IndyCar racing like I used to. Back when they split and it was CART and Indy, it just kind of ruined everything. And there's real no name recognition in regards to any of the drivers anymore. And the cars are very unlike NASCAR, where you can say, look at the nice number 14 car. It's got stickers on it, and it's purple, and it's got Tony the Tiger on it, and all that stuff like that. These cars are just sleek, rocket ships, so to speak. And you want to know, the name, the answers, and all the things back in the day. But Joseph Newgarden, and it was funny. Somebody tried to pronounce it Joseph because they thought he was from Switzerland or somewhere like that. He's from Tennessee. He grew up in Indiana. He was a kart driver. So just a homespun young local guy who wins it in his 12th opportunity for driving for Penske. And did a great job, and it was a fantastic one-lap finish. You don't get to see it too often, but it was a sprint, and they did a great job winning that race.
There's some controversy with that, John, because they don't. It's unlike NASCAR, which has overtime and wants to have the lap on the green flag. there's nothing that says that their racing ends, on a yellow, and a lot of people think that was orchestrated. And who owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? Remind me again. I
Roger
believe his name is
Penske.
Roger Penske. So there's a little bit of
Yeah.
people think there was a little bit of chicanery going on in that race.
Yeah, well, I mean, the guy owns the track. You might want to think about that. Being the owner of the track, Josh, one of our Vibrant Abstract Media guys here, made mention of the tire flying into the parking lot.
Yes.
That's a big deal. I mean, because they've put nets up and you name it to try to protect the fans from, flying. We've seen tragedies where tires have been in the in the stands, and in this case, they went right over the top of the netting. That thing had a spike hanging out in the middle, some tie rod or whatever it would be, and it hit a car in the parking lot. So I mean, the velocity of that thing was amazing.
Yeah, there was a small area where it could have went, where there were fans on one side and fans on the other, and if that hits a fan,
done.
Good night.
Yeah,
done. And so fortunate that it ended up going right between them, and it did mess up the car, but it didn't mess up any human lives. That could have been, we were talking about the horse racing earlier. This would have been a tragedy that would have been. What do you do now? I mean, they got, like you said, they got the catch net so high, and it went over.
You're going to have to go higher, because that's what, even in hockey, they had to do that eventually. So that's something that's going to have to happen, because the NHL responded quickly to the tragedies of pucks hitting people in the face and whatnot. So that's definitely need to be addressed. And the other side of things with NASCAR Coca-Cola 600, Ryan Blaney was the winner. NASCAR still's got some name recognition with their drivers. I just think the coverage is so displaced. I use a reference. The XFL and the USFL, you don't know where to find them weekend to weekend. I think it's great that they're all over the place, but they're all over the place. If you say, well, hey, it's 4:00 and the golf stinks, or this is no good, I'm gonna throw you. Where is it? It's on FX 92. It's on ABC, but it's going to be it's real. And I know they're trying to get as much exposure as they can, but I think there's got to be something like a bell cow, a Sunday night, like they do an NFL, or Monday night, or a Saturday night game that they can have and say, no, it's on ABC or on Fox every Saturday night for the next 10 weeks. I think that would lend itself to people watching a little bit more. But NASCAR does the same thing. Where are they? They're on NBC part of the year. They're on Fox on part of the year. But then some races, they don't even have them on Fox. They go to FS1. They go to NBC Sports. They're whatever they call it now, but Peacock or whatever.
USA Network.
Yeah.
USA Network
gets them. So it's like all over the place. And so NASCAR's seen a little bit of a dip, I would say, on television situation, maybe because of that.
I agree. It's funny, the guy that currently leads the points races from a farm just outside of LaBelle, Ross Chastain, who a lot of people liken him to Dale Sr., the way he acts. He's gotten into a couple of fist fights this year. He definitely doesn't care when he's on the track. And I thought I saw something, and I shouldn't even bring it up because I don't know, but I thought I saw a guy got suspended for 2 races for intentionally wrecking somebody last night.
Yeah,
because that race
was
delayed.
Chase Elliott, I think, is the one who did it.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. Chase Elliott.
The reason why is because he pit maneuvered like the police do on the right side of the car, the pass, and he put him going straight up the track, and the guys in the announcing booth were not pleased with that. They said that's not right. That's retaliation, and that's not the right place to do that, because that's the injury that killed Dale Earnhardt. Because you go up the track and you don't lose any momentum. You actually gain momentum like a boomerang of some sort. You get shot into that, and you can see they had the camera in the car. He was rocked a little bit. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that. So that was something that needed to be addressed, because you can't have that stuff happen. And those cars are weapons, and they can't do that. So,
no question about it. But so stick to the fisticuffs.
Yeah, fight,
because they got in a fist fight a couple of weeks ago, and neither driver got penalized anything.
Listen, a punch in the mouth in the pit area is a lot less than an ambulance ride to the local hospital, because you've got neck injuries or head injuries or any of that stuff. So you don't want that to happen at all. All right, Rich, we'll take our last quick final break right here, and we're going to come back with What's Bugging Me. Would you get your chance to voice your opinion on what's bothering you from this week or what, and just in general, and some predictions for the upcoming week or a few weeks here coming up. With that, we'll take our final break. Be back here at Douglas Jeep for the final section of 941 Sports Zone. See you back here shortly. Back for the final, but not final. It's the most fun segment, I should say, of our 941 Sports Zone, which is what's bugging me and our predictions for the week. And Rich, you're the guest, so being the good host, I'm going to let you go first as to what's bugging you this week.
Well, what's bugging me this week has bugged me since the playoffs started, because all the conspiracy theorists as the Lakers were knocking teams off and the Celtics were surviving in the NBA, and the way the NHL was set up, the conspiracy theorists were out there saying, "Oh, they've got it set up perfectly. It's on a tee. Lakers Celtics final in the NBA. Hockey, Boston's going to just roll through the playoffs, and we'll get another original six team on the other side." You all can go to sleep, because it's Denver, Miami in the NBA, which of course has the folks at Disney just puking in their buckets right next.
Not happy about this.
No, not at all. Not a ratings bonanza at all. I'll watch every second, but I'll be one of the few. And then Vegas and Florida. Stanley's going to get another tan.
Yep.
I saw something today, John, that was interesting. Since 1993, there have been 7 Canadian teams that have made a Cup final. And there have been 7 teams from the state of Florida that have made Cup finals.
Yeah, it's the Canadian dominance is not there anymore. It looks like the state of Florida is Hockey Central. It's not. So yeah, that's.
But no. So I don't want to hear any more conspiracy theories. Listen, we got what we got. Enjoy it. It's going to be great stuff. The Denver-Miami series might not be so long, but I think Vegas and Florida is looking for a long series. So that's
totally
what's bugging me. John, what's bugging you?
Okay, so this is kind of a different one, all right, a little weird. But I'll tell you that I noticed it because I always watch myself getting worked up when I see certain things that bother me, especially on TV. So lately, and I don't know if it's just because it's just the flavor of the time, something new or whatever, but a lot of the people at the 4-Letter Network and the different TV announcers and sports announcers have taken up the idea that they need to pronounce all foreign sort of players' names in the dialect or in the accent of where they're from. Okay,
where they think they're from.
Where they think they're from is right. So I'm watching a couple little Sports Center, and I turn it on, and here's Johnny Jones. I'm just going to use the name, and he's as Midwestern as you can get, and he's there's with pretty blonde number 2, and she's talking about everything else. And, use an easy name. Let's say, okay, here's last night's highlight. There's David Ortiz up to bat. I'm like, what the hell is that? Okay. It's like, oh, and then she comes on and says, like, in the Brewers game last night, Juan Vasquez is what I'm like, it's ridiculous. So I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, they're making fools of themselves. I mean, if my name is Masoni, okay? Mm-hmm. If you go to Italy, it's not Masoni.
Right.
It's Musone. Okay? Yeah. But I can promise you that the guy, if I did something in Italy that was noteworthy on the air, wouldn't go from speaking Italian to putting on some Midwestern accent. Our here's John Masoni. I mean, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. So I'm thinking, am I right to think this is stupid? So I have 2 people who work for me, both of Latin American descent, and I said that, and one of the younger guys said to me, he's like, I cringe when they do that. It is so horrible. I don't know where they took it up. I guess that must have come with the wearing tennis shoes with their suits that they do, like, because they're a game's gonna break out in the studio. They got to have a pair of tennis shoes on. But the idea is, it's just ridiculous that they want to somehow, use whatever, however the accent or whatever else it is. It's just I can't. It infuriates me, and it makes people cringe. And in some ways, I'm like, is that even acceptable? I mean, there's things that there's ways you could go that you would never use dialect or things for other people. Is the French guy on the team? You're gonna have a French accent when his name comes up there? I mean, it's just silly. Yeah, it's one of those things, right? So I just don't understand it. It just infuriates me, and they think they're cute. They think it's funny. There's nothing funny about it. It's like bad humor. They would be, if they were in a comedy store, they get eggs thrown at them, or rotten tomatoes, or a beer, or something along those lines. So. Yeah, that's what's bugging me, and hopefully I don't get to see too much of that in the future. If somebody says, "Hey guys, pump the brakes on this. You're making fools of yourselves." So we'll see. All right, Rich, predictions. What do you got? Any predictions for me this week?
Yeah, I kind of gave them to you a little earlier. I think Denver beats Miami. I think it goes. You know what? I'm gonna step out on a limb. I think they're gonna win it in Miami. I think Denver wins in 5. Gentleman sweep. Stanley Cup final, I think Vegas wins in 7. I think it's going to be a fantastic series with heavy hitting and it's these are the two best teams. When you get to the Stanley Cup final, there's no accidents. You get the two best teams, so this should be a lot of fun.
So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going Nuggets in 5. That's what I had written down. I just think that they can win anywhere. I think they're that much better of a team. Miami didn't show they could hold a home court against Boston whatsoever. So that's the thing. That I think that the Nuggets will go in 5, and I think they'll deservedly get their championship. This is not a fluke. I think they'll be back next year. I think the team is built around a superstar player with good role players and guys that are going to get better. Michael Porter Jr. can be a superstar in this league. Just got to mature a little bit more. So there's things that can definitely happen with Denver. And I'm going to go Panthers in 6. I just think that if they get, like you said, I think you're right. The layoff's going to be something to look at. If they can get past game 1 without having a 2, I mean, they can lose, but not a 6-0 blowout or something like that. I think the Panthers are just that they got that little pixie dust on them. And Golden Knights, I like them, but their goalie is sort of been he don't get a lot of shots on him. They block a lot of shots, but that's when they get leads. And so if he has to stand on his head, I'm not sure if he's ready to do that just yet. So Panthers in 6 and Nuggets in 5. So with that, Rich, this is the end of our podcast, and we did a bang-up job by getting done in less than 2 hours.
We had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, no doubt. And Rich, I want to say one thing right now. I want to tell you how much me and John appreciate you for all the help you've given us over the years. I mean, we're in a podcast here now because you let us cut our teeth working with you and doing things with you, and anything we're good at in regards to opening and closing shows and talking and whatever it would be that go all the stuff that we do. Has a lot to do with you. So we want to thank you for that. And you've been a good friend. And we want you on here as much as we possibly can when it's convenient for you. And we'll talk in as long as we can on a matter of sports, And you and I both were the ones that were managed to get John to actually talk a lot on the radio in the beginning of things, because you never know, but John was a little shyer back then as far as what his speaking, but now he's as confident as they get now, and he's a great co-host, and I enjoy doing all these things with him as well. So again, thank you, Rich. So
I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun over the years with you guys. Look at this. We did this for like an hour, and it was a breeze. Yeah. Just two guys at the bar talking sports, basically. That's what somebody always taught me in broadcasting school back in the mid '80s. So, anyway, I certainly enjoyed it, and I would love to be a guest as much as you'll have.
No, definitely will. So with that, thank you guys for watching 941 Sportscast. For Rich Spedalari, I'm John Masoni. We'll see you here next time on the 941 Sports Hour.